There is something building beneath the surface of your life right now, Sagittarius, and most people around you have no idea what is coming. You have been moving through a period that felt uncertain, maybe even frustrating, because something in your gut has been telling you that not everything adds up. You have been watching. You have been observing. You have been feeling things that words do not quite capture, and you have been doing this quietly, in the way that Sagittarius sometimes does when the situation is too complex for the kind of direct, fire-forward approach that comes naturally to you. And the truth is, your instincts are far sharper than most people give you credit for. Sagittarius is known for being direct, for loving freedom, for charging ahead with confidence and fire. But what people often miss is that beneath all that adventurous energy lives one of the most perceptive minds in the entire zodiac. You see things, you feel things, and lately, you have been noticing things about a specific person or a specific situation that have not fully settled in your mind yet. Something is slightly off. Something is not matching up. The story you have been told and the reality you are witnessing are beginning to separate, and you feel that gap growing wider every single day. This is not paranoia. This is not you being difficult or demanding or unfair. This is your Jupiter-ruled wisdom doing exactly what it was designed to do. Jupiter expands everything it touches, including your vision, your awareness, and your deep capacity to recognize the truth, even when it is being carefully and deliberately hidden from you. The next phase of your life is going to bring a revelation. It may arrive gently, like a quiet moment of clarity settling in when you least expect it, or it may arrive suddenly, like a door flying open and showing you something you were not fully prepared to see. Either way, what is hidden will not stay hidden much longer. It never does. Not from Sagittarius. These are the 11 signs that you are about to see the truth about someone, and every single one of them is already showing up in your life right now. 1. You have started noticing gaps in what they say. It did not happen all at once. That is rarely how it works when someone is being dishonest with you. The revelation does not arrive fully formed. It builds. It begins with something so small that you almost dismiss it, a single thread that seems slightly out of place in the larger fabric of what you have been told. And then it becomes 2 threads, and then 3. And before long you are looking at a pattern of small inconsistencies that are individually explainable but collectively impossible to ignore. Started with small things. A story that changed slightly in the retelling. A detail that did not match something said before. A moment where the timeline they described did not quite line up with what you knew to be true from your own observation or your own memory. You let it go the first time. You are generous that way. You want to believe in people. Sagittarius is not a naturally suspicious sign, and that is one of the most beautiful things about you. You approach life and the people in it with a kind of open-hearted enthusiasm that is rare and precious in this world. You give people the benefit of the doubt. You assume good intentions until the evidence becomes overwhelming. You extend trust freely because you believe in honesty and you operate according to it yourself, and you naturally project that standard onto others. But even the most open heart has a limit, and your mind, sharp and expansive as it is, has begun keeping track. Not intentionally, not because you wanted to build a case against this person. It happened naturally, the way the mind processes information over time and starts drawing conclusions that the heart has not yet caught up with. You have been in conversations where something was said, and a small part of you quietly flagged it. A name that appeared where it should not have. A timeline that did not hold together under close examination. An explanation that answered a question you did not even ask, which is always telling, because people who have nothing to hide rarely feel the need to over-explain things you never asked about. Sagittarius, your mind works fast. You are ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter does not just expand your sense of adventure and your optimism. It also expands your intellectual reach, your capacity to hold a great deal of information at once, to make connections across disparate pieces of data, to see the shape of a pattern even when the individual pieces are scattered across time and context. You make those connections quickly. You see patterns that others miss. And right now, the pattern you are seeing is one of inconsistency. The person you have been observing, whether this is someone in your personal life, your professional world, or someone who has recently entered your sphere in some capacity, is not being completely honest with you. The gaps are not large enough yet to be called outright lies. They are small enough that you have talked yourself out of trusting your own perception more than once. You have said to yourself, maybe I misheard. Maybe I am reading too much into this. Maybe I am being unfair to someone who has not actually done anything wrong. But here is what you need to understand today, Sagittarius. You are not misreading anything. The fact that these inconsistencies keep showing up, the fact that they have accumulated over time rather than appearing just once and disappearing, is not a coincidence. That is a pattern, and patterns are data. Real data. Data that deserves to be taken seriously and followed wherever it honestly leads. Here is something else worth knowing. When someone is being less than honest with you, the gaps they leave are almost never random. They are clustered around specific subjects, specific time periods, specific relationships. If you look at the inconsistencies you have been noticing, you will see that they are not scattered across every topic of conversation. They are concentrated in certain areas. That concentration points to what is being protected. Your spirit is already preparing you for what your mind is beginning to confirm. The truth about this person has not been fully revealed yet, but the gaps in what they are saying are the first clear and unmistakable sign that it is on its way to you. 2. Your gut is speaking louder than your reasoning. There is a particular kind of feeling that Sagittarius knows well, even if you do not always stop to name it. It is that moment when your mind says one thing and your body says another. When logic offers you a perfectly reasonable explanation for something and something deeper in you, something below the level of thought and language says yes but no. There is a quiet, persistent wrongness that logic cannot quite dissolve, no matter how many times you apply it. You are experiencing that feeling right now with this person or situation, and it has been growing louder even as you have tried to silence it with fairness and measured reasoning. You are someone who values reason. You are philosophical by nature. You like to arrive at conclusions through thought, through evidence, through an honest examination of what you actually know versus what you merely suspect. You are not someone who runs on pure emotion. And so when a feeling rises up in you that does not come with evidence attached in a form you can hold up and examine, there is a part of you that wants to dismiss it. You have probably told yourself that you are being irrational, that you should not let a vague sense of unease override what you actually know to be true, that it is unfair to hold a feeling against someone when you cannot point to specific evidence that clearly justifies it. But here is the thing that Sagittarius sometimes forgets, and it is important. Your gut is not separate from your intelligence. It is not a rival to your thinking. It is the compressed product of every experience you have ever had, every observation you have ever made, every pattern your mind has ever processed, delivered to you in a form that bypasses conscious analysis because conscious analysis is too slow for what the situation requires. When your gut speaks, it is not speaking without data. It is speaking with more data than your conscious mind can organize at once. Think of it as your most experienced advisor, the one who has been watching the longest and who does not need to explain their reasoning because they have lived enough to simply know. What you are feeling right now about this person is not coming from nowhere. It is coming from 1,000 small observations that your awareness has collected and stored over the time you have spent in proximity to this person. The way they hesitate before answering certain questions, the way their energy shifts when specific subjects come up, the way their eyes move when they are saying something that is not entirely true, the way something in their face changes when they think you are not looking, the subtle change in the texture of their voice when they are on uncertain ground. Your gut has been tracking all of this without you even realizing it, and now it is delivering you the conclusion. That conclusion is telling you that something is not right, that this person is carrying something they have not shown you, that the version of themselves they present to you is not the complete version. Sagittarius, one of the most important things you will ever learn is that your instinct is a gift, not a flaw. It is not anxiety. It is not overthinking. It is not the product of past wounds distorting your perception of the present. It is wisdom in its rawest, most unmediated form, and it is asking you very clearly to pay attention to what you have been feeling. The rational mind is a powerful tool, but the gut is an older one, and in this situation the older tool is the one with the clearer view. If what you are hearing feels accurate, know that it could happen if you applied this energy consistently for 21 consecutive days. That is the 21-day challenge pinned at the top of this channel. It is built around daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you are tired of staying in the same cycle, that structure is exactly what has been missing. 3. They act differently when others are around. One of the clearest and most reliable signs that someone is not being fully authentic with you is the difference between who they are when you are alone with them and who they become the moment other people enter the picture. You have noticed this. It may have taken you a while to put your finger on what exactly you were observing, because the shift is sometimes subtle. But you have noticed that there are two versions of this person, and they do not quite match each other. There is a version of this person that exists in private, when it is just the two of you, when there is no audience to manage, when they can be whoever they actually are. And there is a version that appears when others are watching, a version that seems more deliberate, more constructed, more carefully arranged for consumption. And the two versions are not the same. The difference is not just in degree. It is in kind. It speaks not to someone who is simply more relaxed in private, but to someone who is actively managing a presentation in public. This is not about someone being naturally more reserved in social situations or more comfortable at home. Everyone adjusts slightly depending on the context they are in. That is normal and human and does not indicate anything concerning on its own. What you are observing is something qualitatively different. It is a shift in energy, in priorities, in the fundamental way they position themselves, in the way they talk about you or around you when others can observe. It may be that they become more charming, more agreeable, more careful with their words in ways that feel calculated rather than natural. Or it may be the opposite, that they become cooler, more distant, less warm than they are in private, as though they are managing how others perceive your relationship. Either way, the inconsistency is telling you something real. Authentic people do not have radically different faces depending on who is watching. People who are hiding something, or who are managing multiple versions of a story across different audiences, often do. They are careful about what they reveal and to whom, and that carefulness shows up as a kind of shape-shifting that you, Sagittarius, are uniquely equipped to detect. You are a traveler by nature, someone who has moved through many different environments, many different social circles, many different cultures and contexts across a lifetime of seeking new horizons. You have seen how people operate in different settings, and you have a finely tuned sense for the difference between someone who is naturally adapting to their environment and someone who is performing a role because they need to control what is visible. What you are seeing from this person is a performance. The version of themselves they show you in public and the version they show you in private do not add up to one coherent person. They add up to someone managing an image. And the cracks in that image are beginning to show more clearly every time you encounter them in a new social setting. Keep watching. The inconsistency will not become smaller. It will become more visible. 4. You have caught them in a small lie they quickly covered. It was not a big lie. That is what makes it so complicated, and that is what makes it so revealing. If it had been a large, obvious deception, something dramatic and undeniable, you would have known immediately what to do with it. You would not have had to sit with the uncertainty that you have been sitting with. But it was small. Small enough that when they corrected themselves, or offered an alternative explanation, or redirected the conversation with something plausible, you could almost convince yourself that what you saw was a simple mistake. A slip of memory, a misunderstanding. But you know the difference between someone who made an honest error and someone who made an error, and then quickly recalibrated to cover it. You saw the recalibration. You saw the pause, however brief it was, where they chose a different direction from the one they had started in. You saw the way the explanation arrived just a little too smoothly, as though it had been prepared in advance for exactly this kind of moment. You noticed the way they moved the conversation forward quickly after that, not giving you space to stay with what you had just caught. That quickness was deliberate, even if it was also instinctive on their part. Small lies are more revealing than big ones, and this is something worth understanding deeply. People rarely bother to construct small lies unless something larger is at stake. A big lie has obvious motivation, and even when a big lie is discovered, it can sometimes be rationalized because the stakes that motivated it are visible. But a small lie, something that seems almost pointless to fabricate, something where the truth would have been entirely acceptable, is often the exposed edge of something much larger that is being protected. A small lie is the tip that points to the iceberg beneath the surface. The inconsistency you caught was not a random slip. It was a thread, and it is connected to something. If you were to follow it, if you had the full picture available to you, it would lead somewhere that explains a great deal of what has felt slightly wrong for longer than you can name. Sagittarius, you value honesty above almost everything else. One of the most defining qualities of your sign is a deep, almost fierce commitment to truth. You would rather hear a hard truth than a comfortable lie. And you extend that standard not just to yourself but to the people you allow into your life. When you encounter dishonesty, even small dishonesty, it registers in you at a visceral level. It does not just feel like a mistake. It feels like a violation of something fundamental, like a crack in the foundation of trust that everything else was built on. That feeling is not an overreaction. It is your values speaking clearly and without ambiguity. And your values are telling you that what you caught was not an isolated moment. It was a symptom. The lie was small. What it is protecting is not. 5. You have felt a shift in their energy that you cannot explain. Energy shifts are real, and they are measurable by anyone who pays close enough attention, though not everyone does. You more than most understand this. Sagittarius is attuned to the invisible current that runs between people, the emotional temperature of a space, the weight of what is not being said, the feeling of something present that has not yet taken verbal form. And lately, you have felt a shift in the energy of this person that you cannot fully articulate, but that you absolutely cannot ignore. Something is different. The texture of how it feels to be around them has changed, and it has not changed for better. The warmth feels slightly less warm. The openness feels slightly less open. There are moments where you sense a wall that was not there before, something solid and deliberate between you and them, even in moments where everything on the surface appears the same as it always has been. There are moments where they seem to be carrying something heavy that they are not willing to share with you, something that shows up not in what they say but in the quality of their presence, in the way they occupy the space between you, in the slight but perceptible guardedness that has crept into how they engage with you. This shift in energy is not a coincidence, and it is not something you invented out of your own anxiety. Energy reflects reality. When someone is holding back, when they are carrying guilt or a secret or a divided loyalty, that weight shows up in how they move through space, in how they make eye contact or avoid it, in how they connect with the people around them when they think no one is closely measuring the quality of the connection. The texture of their presence changes, and you have been feeling that texture change in a way that has been difficult to name but genuinely impossible to dismiss. Sagittarius, your sensitivity to energy is one of your most underrated gifts. People often think of you as the bold, adventurous sign, the one who charges ahead and does not look too deeply or too internally. But you are much more perceptive than that reputation gives you credit for. You notice things. You feel things in spaces and between people that many others walk right past without registering. And what you are feeling from this person right now is the energetic footprint of something that has not yet been spoken, something that is being held just below the surface of every interaction you have with them, something that is changing the quality of how they are present with you even when nothing in the external picture has visibly changed. Trust what you are feeling. It is real data, delivered in a form that goes beyond words. Your energy reading is not malfunctioning. It is working exactly as it should, and what it is reading is significant. 6. You keep being redirected away from certain topics. Honest people do not usually work hard to avoid conversations. They may not enjoy every topic. They may approach difficult subjects with care, or ask to return to something when they feel more ready to engage with it. But they do not consistently redirect, deflect, or change the subject every single time certain areas come up in conversation. They do not have a reliable and repeating pattern of avoidance around specific subjects. You have noticed that this person does, and you have noticed it more than once. There are specific topics, specific names, specific areas of life, where anytime you come anywhere close to them in the natural flow of conversation, the direction suddenly changes. Sometimes they change the subject so smoothly that you barely notice it happening until you are already in a completely different conversation and you realize with a mild confusion that you never got to finish the thought you started. Sometimes they introduce a new thread before you can complete your point so naturally that it almost seems conversational rather than strategic. Sometimes they respond to what you said with something that sounds like an answer but actually addressed a slightly different question than the one you asked, close enough to seem responsive but positioned specifically to avoid the heart of what you were getting at. This is not accidental. Consistent redirection of this kind is a strategy, even when it operates below the level of fully conscious decision-making. It is what people do when they have something to protect, when there is a corner of their story or their life that they need you to stay away from, when direct answers to certain questions would require them to either lie more explicitly than they are comfortable doing or reveal something they are absolutely not ready to reveal. And the fact that it keeps happening with this particular person, around what seem like the same general territories of conversation, is telling you something very specific. Those territories are where the truth lives. Where you are not being allowed to go freely is where the answers are. You are someone who values open, honest conversation more than almost anything else in relationships of any kind. Sagittarius is one of the most intellectually engaged signs in the entire zodiac. Someone who loves exploring ideas from every angle, asking real questions, following a line of thought wherever it honestly leads, even when that place is uncomfortable. Being consistently redirected away from honest exploration does not just feel frustrating to you. Feels like a kind of cage. And you have never responded well to cages, no matter what form they take. Trust that discomfort. It is your nature recognizing that something real is being kept from you, and that the person doing the keeping has reasons they are not sharing. If this message is resonating with your sign right now, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it sends exactly the right signal at exactly the right moment. And you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support, whether as a subscriber or as a member of this community, is what keeps these messages alive. The ones that touch hearts, awaken minds, and transform lives. If this video has been making sense to you, drop in the comments the day you were born. Let us keep going. 7. You have heard things from others that do not match what you were told. Sometimes the truth does not come from the person who has been hiding it. Sometimes it comes from the edges of their world, from a casual comment someone else makes without realizing what it reveals, from information that arrives indirectly and unexpectedly through a channel you were not even actively monitoring. And lately, things have been reaching you from those edges that do not line up with what this person has told you directly. Things that are small but significant. Things that lodge in your memory and that, when you look at them alongside what you have been told, produce a gap you cannot simply explain away. It may have been a passing comment from someone who knows them in a different context, someone who had no reason to be careful about what they said, because they did not know they were filling in a gap in a story that was never supposed to have gaps. It may have been something you overheard or stumbled across by accident, information that arrived not because you were looking for it but because it was simply in your path at the right moment. It may have been a detail that emerged in a conversation you were not even fully paying attention to, something that lodged in your mind with a quiet weight that you did not notice until later, when you were alone and the full significance of it settled in clearly. These moments feel genuinely disorienting, because they require you to hold two different versions of a story at the same time. The version you were given directly, with all the care and construction that went into presenting it to you, and the version that is beginning to emerge from other sources, unmanaged, unfiltered, and therefore closer to what is actually true. The unmanaged version always carries more weight than the managed one, because it has not been shaped for an audience. Sagittarius, your love of truth is not just a personality trait. It is a spiritual orientation, a fundamental aspect of who you are at your deepest level. You are someone who needs to understand the world as it actually is, not as someone wants you to believe it is. That need is what makes you a philosopher, a seeker, a traveler not just of physical territories but of intellectual and experiential ones. When the world you have been shown and the world that is actually there begin to diverge clearly enough that other people's casual words are revealing the gap, you feel it as a kind of wrongness that is impossible to settle into comfortably. What you are hearing from others is not gossip. It is not coincidence. It is the universe presenting you with the missing pieces of a picture that was always incomplete, because someone chose to keep it that way. 8. Your dreams and quiet moments are sending you messages. You are a fire sign Sagittarius, which means your energy is often directed outward, toward activity, toward engagement, toward the wide world and all the adventures it holds. You are enthusiastic and expressive and oriented toward movement. But Jupiter, your ruling planet, is also the planet of wisdom and inner knowing, and it works on you even when you are still, especially when you are still. It has a way of reaching you in the spaces between your active moments, in the threshold states where the analytical mind relaxes its grip and something deeper is able to make itself heard without having to compete with the noise of daily life. Have you noticed what has been coming to you in the quiet moments? In the space between sleep and waking, that soft and unguarded state where the mind processes without judgment? In the dreams that you almost remember, but that leave you with a feeling you cannot shake even hours into the day? Something is trying to reach you from your own deeper awareness, and it is communicating through those quieter channels because it cannot get through the noise of your busy, forward-moving life any other way. The subconscious does not wait for permission. It delivers its conclusions whether or not the conscious mind has caught up. The messages you are receiving in those quieter states are connected to what is being hidden from you. Your subconscious has been processing the gaps, the inconsistencies, the energy shifts, all of the things your waking mind has been working to rationalize or set aside so that daily life can continue with some degree of normalcy, and it has reached conclusions that your conscious mind is only now beginning to approach. Your deeper awareness does not need all the pieces to be in place to recognize the shape of a situation. It reads from what is available, and what has been available has been enough. Pay close attention to what rises in you when you are not distracted by immediate demands. Pay attention to the images that come to you when you are falling asleep, when the analytical part of your mind releases its tight grip and the intuitive part takes over. Pay attention to the feelings that surface when you are alone, and the busy surface of your life has grown quiet enough to let something through. Those feelings are not random. They are not the product of unrelated anxiety, or the residue of something from your past that has nothing to do with the present situation. They are messages from the most honest part of yourself, the part that cannot be convinced of things that are not true, and they are telling you something important about the truth that is approaching. When Jupiter speaks in the quiet hours, Sagittarius, it is always worth listening. 9. You have felt the urge to pull back without fully understanding why. There has been a part of you that has wanted to create some distance from this person, even though you have not been able to fully explain why. Not a dramatic withdrawal, not a confrontation or a declared change in how you relate to each other. Just a quiet internal pulling back, a sense that you want to be a little less available, a little less open, a little less willing to give the parts of yourself that you would normally give freely to someone in this position in your life. Something in you is conserving, something in you is protecting, and you are not entirely sure what it is protecting or from what. You are not usually someone who withholds. Sagittarius is generous by nature, genuinely and openly generous with time, with energy, with enthusiasm, with the benefit of the doubt, with the kind of deep trust that, once extended, tends to stay extended unless there is clear cause to withdraw it. The fact that something in you has been pulling back, creating a buffer, maintaining a small additional distance that was not there before, is significant precisely because it is not your default. Something is driving that instinct, and it is not coming from nowhere. Your inner self is creating distance for a reason. It is protecting you from something it has already understood that your conscious mind is still in the process of working out. This is what instinct does. It gets there ahead of reasoning because it does not have to follow the same slower, more deliberate path that reasoning follows. It reads the situation directly, holistically, and responds, and what it is responding to in this case is the accumulating evidence, felt more than seen, that something about this person is not what it appears. Your instinctive self-protection is not a flaw in your character. It is not you being cold or paranoid or unfair to someone who may be innocent. It is your wisdom in action, your deeper self drawing a careful boundary before you have consciously decided to draw one, because it can already see what your conscious mind is still approaching. The desire to pull back is the soul saying, wait. Not yet. Not until you have more information. Not until you understand more clearly what you are actually dealing with here. Listen to that impulse. Do not override it with logic or with guilt about being fair to someone who may or may not deserve the benefit of the doubt you are considering giving them. The part of you that is pulling back is the part of you that already knows what is coming. 10. Certain things they do not match the person you thought they were. You had a picture of who this person was. Maybe it formed quickly, the way initial impressions sometimes do when you meet someone who presents themselves with clarity and confidence. Maybe it built over time as you collected experience of who they seem to be, assembling evidence into a portrait you thought you understood well enough to trust. But lately, moments have been appearing that do not fit the portrait, actions that seem out of character with the person you thought you knew, choices that do not align with the values they said they held or that you observed them demonstrating in earlier interactions, reactions that reveal something underneath the surface persona that you did not expect to find there, something that does not match the picture you were given and that you accepted. These moments of misalignment are not small in their effect, even if they seem small in their immediate form. Individually, each one might be explainable, but the feeling they leave behind accumulates. It is the feeling of realizing that the template you have been using to understand this person might need to be revised more substantially than minor adjustment can address. It is the feeling of something shifting underfoot in a relationship or a situation where you thought the ground was stable. It is the feeling of recognizing that what you were shown at the beginning was perhaps not the complete picture that it appeared to be. Sagittarius, you are a truth seeker by nature. You do not cling to comfortable stories when reality persistently contradicts them. You would rather know what is actually true and deal with it honestly, with your eyes fully open, than hold on to a version of events that flatters the situation but does not hold together under honest examination. That is one of your most important and most admirable qualities. And right now, that quality is asking you to look honestly at the evidence that has been accumulating, to consider the possibility that the person in front of you is not entirely who they appeared to be when they first came into your life. This is not about condemning anyone. People are complicated and layered. But there is a meaningful difference between discovering surprising new layers of someone who is fundamentally who they said they were, and discovering that the foundation of the portrait was built on something less solid. What you are seeing suggests the latter, and your clarity about that distinction is itself one of the clearest signs that the truth is very close to arriving. 11. You are being prepared for a truth that will free you. Everything that has been happening, all 10 of the signs described here, all of the feelings and observations and quiet knowings that have been accumulating in you during this period, has been pointing you towards something. And that something is not an ending, though it will feel like one at first. It is a beginning. The truth that is about to reach you about this person is not going to break you. Sagittarius does not break easily, and certainly not from the arrival of truth, because truth, however difficult in its immediate form, is always something you can work with. It is always something you can stand on. Unlike a comfortable lie, which is always eventually going to crumble, and always takes you down with it when it does. What is coming is the kind of clarity that changes everything. Not because it destroys something you valued, though it may require you to release some things you had been holding, but because it releases you from something you were carrying that was never fully real to begin with. There is an enormous and important difference between the pain of genuine loss, which is the loss of something that was actually there, and the relief of clarity, which is the discovery that what you thought you had was different in some fundamental ways from what you actually had. When the truth arrives, you may feel both of those things simultaneously. That is natural and deeply human. But underneath the immediate discomfort, underneath the adjustment that any real revelation requires, there will be something else. A lightness, a sense of now I understand, a kind of inner settling that happens when reality finally matches your perception of it, when the gap between what you were told and what was true finally closes. You have been carrying the weight of something you could not quite name for longer than you should have had to carry it. That weight has been using up your energy, occupying space in your awareness, creating a low background hum of wrongness that you could not fully account for no matter how many times you examined the situation. That weight is about to lift. The truth will arrive in its own time and its own way, and when it arrives, Sagittarius, you will be ready for it. Not because you had formal preparation, but because you have already been preparing. You have already been listening. You have already, somewhere deep inside yourself, known. And now the knowing that has been living in you quietly is about to receive its full confirmation from the outside world. When it does, do not waste time on bitterness or regret. Do not spend your fire on judgment of yourself for the time you spent not knowing. Use the clarity. Use the freedom it brings. This truth is not punishment. It is liberation, and Sagittarius, liberation has always been your natural element. If this message resonated with your sign, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it always sends exactly the right signal, and you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support as a subscriber or as a member of this community is what keeps these messages alive. They are the messages that touch, awaken, and transform. If this video made sense to you, leave in the comments the day you were born. There is a reason you watched this until the end, Sagittarius. It was not random. Nothing in your life right now is happening by accident. And the signs you have been experiencing are not mistakes of perception or imagination running away with itself in quiet moments. They are real. They are meaningful. They are data. And they are all pointing in the same direction, toward a truth that has been waiting for the right moment to emerge fully into your awareness. A truth that could not be rushed, because you needed to be ready to receive it without being destroyed by it. And the preparation you have been going through during this uncertain period has been building exactly that capacity. You were born under Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, the planet of expansion, of wisdom, of the kind of knowing that comes not just from accumulating experience but from genuinely integrating it into who you are. Jupiter gives you more than what people call luck. Gives you sight, a depth of vision that sees through surfaces, that reads between the lines people leave in their conversations, that feels the truth in a room before it has been spoken aloud, that tracks the gap between what is said and what is real with a precision that even you do not always fully appreciate in yourself. You tend to notice things and then explain them away. You tend to feel things and then apply reason to reduce them to something more manageable. But the noticing and the feeling are the more accurate instruments. They have been right about this. The discomfort you have been feeling, the restlessness, the persistent sense that something is slightly wrong that you could not quite put into words precise enough to satisfy your own analytical mind, all of that was not a malfunction. It was a preparation. The archer does not release the arrow without first taking careful aim. And you have been aiming, quietly, carefully, with a kind of patient, deliberate attention that Sagittarius does not always get credit for, because the world sees your enthusiasm and your directness and assumes that depth and patience are not part of your picture. But they are very much part of your picture. What is being hidden from you is not hidden because you are weak or naive or easily fooled. It is hidden because someone made a choice to hide it. That choice was not about your limitations. It was entirely about theirs. The truth, which has its own weight and its own momentum that nothing can permanently contain, cannot be hidden forever. Never can. And especially not from someone whose Jupiter-blessed vision has the range and the clarity that yours does. When the truth arrives, receive it with the open hands that Sagittarius is genuinely capable of when the fire is channeled into wisdom. The truth is not your enemy. It has never been your enemy. The truth is your liberation. And you have always been headed toward freedom.